DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health. At Merck Animal Health, we're shaping the future of animal health with pioneering science, connected technology, and insights-driven solutions to bring our customers an unparalleled portfolio of choices to improve cattle care and operational efficiency. We support you and your legacy by helping you meet the challenges of today with the innovations of tomorrow.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us today on DocTalk. We're going to have a great show. We have Robin Reid joining us today from K-State's Department of Ag Economics, and we're going to talk about land values, land leasing, land sales, and much more. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be right back.
They're here, they're hungry, and they can't be stopped with ivermectin. Choose Safeguard when you deworm your cattle to take out resistant parasites like brown stomach worm, Cuperia, Nematodyrus, and others. With Safeguard's efficacy, you can kill more resistant worms in your cattle, so you don't leave potential on the table. Consult your veterinarian for the diagnosis and treatment of parasitism. Then bite back at safeguardworks.com.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and I'm here with Robin Reid, and we're at Kansas State University, where Robin serves as an extension farm economist here in the state of Kansas, and is located at Kansas State University. And I was sitting there thinking, there's things that everything relates, whether it's health or sustainability or, maintaining profitability of our ranches, of our feedlots, and the beef industry. And land values and land leases always percolates to the top of how do we stay in business, how do we expand, how do we have enough acres, and that's something you specialize in.
Yeah, so the land market has been extremely interesting to watch the last few years. One of the things we always look at is what's driving the land market, and it's pretty easy to make a connection between how well we're doing in the farm economy to what's happening with land values. So a chart that I have here in Kansas is just showing what our values have been the last 15 years or so. And as you notice, as it starts out, we're kind of increasing at a pretty flat, easy pace. And then we hit 2010 to 2014, and land values just escalated extremely quickly. We had, if you remember, pretty high corn, soybean values back then. Between 2014 and 2015, we saw the biggest drop in net farm income or farm profitability that we've ever seen here in Kansas. And that happened across the nation as well. We were worried then, we're going back to the 1980s, our land value is going to fall. And in reality, what we saw over the next 5 or 6 years is they remained fairly flat. Now, I'll come back to that later when we talk about reasons of who owns Kansas farm ground.
Yep.
But since 2020, we've seen a very large uptick in land values again as well. We had a lot of payments for the COVID relief programs. We had pretty favorable interest rates up until lately, as we all know. We had inflation. We just had a lot of money in the farm economy, and land values really took off again.
When we start to think about that, and you start to think about, I sit there and I think about, okay, people trying to expand, people trying to decide what to do with their land. Do you think these increases are going to create some shifts in who's buying land, who's getting into agriculture? I guess that's the big question I have.
Yeah, so that is really the million-dollar question, is where we're going to go in the future on this. And, a lot of the drivers, when I talked about we flattened in land values and didn't go down when there wasn't the farm economy to support land values where they were, what we're seeing in recent years, I'd say the last 5 to 10 years, is a lot more non-ag interest in buying farm ground or ranch land. So that might be investment potential. Hunting or recreational opportunities are huge right now, and a lot of times are outcompeting even the pasture land values that we could pay as a producer or a rancher. So that is really driving the land market. Where we go from here, obviously we know corn and soybean prices have come down, and it'll be interesting. We'll get a new USDA report coming out here in a few weeks to say what the increase has been from 2024 since 2023. And I anticipate we'll still be up, but starting to flatten out on where these land values will go.
And really quickly before we leave, you focus on Kansas, but is this trend, are we seeing this nationally?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I have data in Kansas, but one of the charts I show here is just the pasture values of all the states, and you can see a very large percentage uptick here in the Midwest, but it's going up everywhere.
Perfect. It's Robin Reid. We're here at Kansas State University. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
This Cattle Intel is brought to you by Neogen.
Hello there, Dr. Nick Wagner, Professional Services Veterinarian with Neogen here today, and just wanted to take a brief moment to talk about water access in feedlots. And with that being the case, you want to make sure, based on the size and number of cattle in your feed yard, that they have free access to water at all times. You want to make sure that those water sources have the proper flow to be able to provide adequate intakes for those animals, because the other big thing with water is that the water intakes will directly impact feed intakes on those cattle. And so if you're not able to get the amount of water those animals need or get them access to water, especially in the heat of summer, you're going to have trouble with the health and performance of those animals. And you also want to make sure that you're keeping a close eye on your tanks within the feed yard to make sure that you're keeping them clean and avoiding any sources of contamination, which also could have an impact on the health and productivity of those animals in your feed yard.
Thanks for watching Cattle Intel by Neogen.
Are you a cattle feeder looking to manage for a stronger and more profitable set of cattle? Look no further than Igenity Feeder. Igenity Feeder utilizes DNA to gain insight into your cattle's genomic potential, with the information to predict performance, quality, and economic endpoints for cattle feeders. Animals are scored and ranked in a simple format, driving more precise and accurate management decisions. Igenity Feeder gives you the power to predict days on feed, manage variability within lots, characterize carcass performance, and focus on metrics important to you and your operation. With the data provided, you will identify superior animals earlier and maintain high operational efficiency. Maximize your profit and optimize performance with Igenity Feeder.
We have fed for the same customers for the last 10 years. I know their cattle. Sometimes cattle can come in a little wild, long haul cattle. Those types of cattle get therapies to help those settle in better. And we have also adapted that a lot of our sick cattle, by the time a cowboy pulls them from their pen, drives them to a hospital, and then either getting returned to the hospital or returning to the home pen, I believe that's a lot of stress on the animal. So anything that's been treated gets therapies, and we have seen success with that as well.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and I'm here with Robin Reid. She's an extension farm economist for Kansas State University's Department of Ag Econ, located here in Manhattan, Kansas, where we're shooting this today. And we're having a discussion about land values, land ownership, and that's kind of where we're going to shift to next, is who owns the land and what's going to happen with land ownership, or what we're seeing.
Yeah, so we had a Census of Agriculture report come out earlier this year. It was actually the 2022 census. It's done every 5 years, but the data takes a while to come out. And what we saw is no surprise. We're having fewer and larger farms and ranches across the nation. We have right now the baby boomer generation of farmers are retiring, have been, and will continue to. And what that's doing is driving a lot of land to change hands. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it will be on the market, but we have a lot of land changing hands to the next generation, and they might not be on the land anymore. They might be in a different city, in a different state. And that's really creating an interesting dynamic of farmers and ranchers working with the next generation of landowners. But we're also seeing a lot of land go on the market as it gets inherited, and we will continue to see a lot of land on the market in the coming years.
Yeah, I see that a little bit. I kid that my generation is going to be the skipped generation, because we're sandwiched between the boomers and the grandkids, and we're staying in this business so much longer that there's going to have to be some things that kind of give and take.
Yeah, we have a lot of stories I could point to where the next generation is going to take over the farm. Well, the next generation might be 60 or 65 years old,
Exactly.
getting ready to take over the farm or the ranch. So yeah, that is very commonplace. But yeah, what it kind of all leads to, I was studying just who our landowners are here in Kansas, and I have Kansas data, but this I think is going on across all of our Midwestern states and Oklahoma, Texas area. But basically, when I looked in 2015, I looked at where are the tax statement addresses of all of our ag parcels here in Kansas, and was able to look at just how many landowners are still in the state, because we know rural areas are declining in population. And back in 2015, it was about 84.5% of our agricultural ground here in Kansas is still owned by a Kansas landowner. As we went forward 7 years, so in 2022, that number had started to decline. And interestingly enough, the type of ground that had declined into more out-of-state ownership, I can quantify as easily pasture and grass.
Really?
So we anecdotally see that a lot of land sales going to out-of-state hunters or recreation ground if they have pasture on them. But that is making it extremely difficult for cattle producers and especially young producers to get into the industry and get any sort of ownership on some pasture ground here
Well,
in
you
the
look at
state.
that and you look at the inability to graze CRP or acres that are marginal going into CRP that takes that out of production as well, coupled with what you're seeing in ownership.
There's a lot of competition out there, yes,
Yeah.
not just cattle producers. There's other sources.
So we have about 30 seconds to wrap up here. What are kind of the take-home messages on land ownership and what you see coming in the future?
I don't think these trends are going to change. We're going to start to see more and more out-of-state ownership, more absentee landowners that producers are going to be working with. And I think we'll touch on that topic here coming up. But yeah, it's going to be a continuing issue, I'm sure.
It's great. Folks, it's Robin Reid. We're here at Kansas State University. Thanks for watching. We're going to take a break and we'll come right back.
Every farmer knows that understanding the landscape is the most important ingredient for success. When it comes to investing in precious metals, United Patriot Coin can help steer you in the right direction. No obligation, just solid advice. Call now for your free guide, 844-202-7834.
When it comes to treating BRD, you want a product that you can count on to get the job done at an affordable price. Macrocin by Bimeda delivers on both. A straight-shooting, no BS tulathromycin that does what it's supposed to do. End of story. You don't need to take our word for it, though. Go to macrocin.com for customer testimonials and head-to-head trial results. For your cattle and your bottom line, choose Macrocin.
In the livestock industry, castration is a common practice to ensure proper herd management. All methods are painful, regardless of the age of the animal. At Solvit, we could not ignore the clear industry need for better castration solutions. So we developed LidoBand, a novel lidocaine-impregnated elastrator, addressing the pain associated with band castration. It provides local anesthesia throughout the castration process. LidoBand, a small device that can make a big difference.
When you spot BRD in your cattle, that's your golden opportunity to target infection and its associated fever with a single dose of Resflor Gold, the industry standard dual therapy. To learn more, talk to your Merck Animal Health rep or your vet and see label at resflorgold.com. Animals intended for human consumption must not be slaughtered within 38 days of treatment. This product is not approved for use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older, including dry dairy cows.
Ranchers, looking to elevate your pasture management game? Turn to Heinen Brothers for expert aerial application. With state-of-the-art equipment and seasoned pilots, we deliver precision treatments right to your fields. From fertilizers to herbicides, Heinen Brothers has your pasture covered. Visit HeinenBrosAg.com to learn more.
When the ones who have your heart need your help, count on us for everything they deserve, delivered fast. We'll work hard for you so you can work hard for your dreams.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson here with Robin Reid. She's an extension farm economist here at Kansas State University in the Department of Ag Economics. Does tremendous work. It's just been really a neat day to learn and to understand, and I guarantee you we're gonna want you back to be on the show. Today's the teaser of what more shows to come, but one of the hot topics out there is foreign land ownership, or people from foreign countries owning land in Kansas or anywhere in the United States. And you've done some work on that.
I've done a lot of work on this, and not that I can cover in this short of a segment, but what I really want to highlight is there's a lot of hype out there. Most of it kind of hit the national headlines when there was the proposed corn milling facility in North Dakota that was very close to our Air Force Base. It was a Chinese-owned corn milling plant, so obviously that got blocked and didn't go through, but really created a frenzy of, do we know who owns our land? Where are they? What countries are controlling? And then coupled with that is the current system of reporting a foreign interest in ag land dates back to 1978. And it's a form that you fill out through the Farm Service Agency disclosing any foreign interest in the purchase or long-term lease of the farm or ranch ground. Now, the kicker there is the long-term lease problem, because if you've driven through Kansas, Iowa, Minnesota, anywhere lately, you'll notice something up in the air spinning, and those are windmills.
Right.
So the problem is a lot of those companies, they might be U.S. companies, they might be foreign-held companies, but they are having to report the same way an ownership interest is reporting. And so when I looked at this national report of foreign interest in Kansas, I had one of my counties as over a third of the acres were foreign held.
Oh no.
When I look at something like that, I always got to dig into the why. So we did a Freedom of Information Act request to get the underlying data. And on this chart here, I'll actually break down Kansas, and I would say a lot of other states are going to look like this too. But basically, out of our 49 million privately held acres, 1.2 million of those was reported as foreign held. But you dive into that number, that is 1.1 million is actually wind energy leases. So there's almost all of it by far. When you take that 1.2 million down to what actually ownership is occurring, it's less than 68,000. So less than 0.25% of our privately held acres are actually foreign owned. The wind energy lease and now solar energy leases are really making that look a lot more inflated than, and again, that was Kansas numbers, but you see windmills all across the nation that are going to
I guess I didn't realize that those were not U.S. companies.
Well, it might be a U.S. company, but if over 10% of the shareholder interest is foreign, it was reported the same way.
I'll be dang.
So it's really making it look inflated.
So you're saying of the 49 million acres, or 49, that only 68,000?
Correct. Here in Kansas.
In Kansas,
yes,
are foreign owned.
Correct. And a lot of these stem way back in history that, were inherited. A spouse was maybe not a U.S. citizen, and so it was reported. So I think there's a lot of hype out there. I don't disagree that it's an issue we need to be looking at, getting a better reporting system, but I don't think it's quite the panic situation that a lot of headlines make it out to be.
It's perfect. Great information, great knowledge base. Robin Reid, we're here at Kansas State University, and we'll come right back after these messages.
Hey, I'm Clark Victory. I grew up right here on this little ranch near Chelsea, Oklahoma. Roped and ranched all my life. A few years ago, I had an injury that created what they call a frozen shoulder. And after speaking with the surgeon in Tulsa, he told me that he could make my shoulder better if he did surgery, but he absolutely couldn't fix it. And I called Kansas Regenerative Medical Center. I did the stem cell replacement. By 12:30, my wife and I had lunch and was driving back to Chelsea. We work around here. Some days we work pretty hard around here, and my right shoulder doesn't get sore. It's like a baby's arm.
Hey folks, when we talk about intranasal products, having the right nozzle is important, and Merck has a new what they call CleanVax nozzle that's outstanding for administering Nasalgen. It has a nozzle that helps with the direction and application of the vaccine in the nose. And if you want to receive a free package of CleanVax nozzles, go to valleyvet.com. And between now through the end of September, anytime you order Nasalgen products and you use the promo code DocTalk, they will send you a free package of the CleanVax nozzles. Hope you're enjoying it. They work, and we'll see you down the road. Hey folks, for your firearm and ammo needs, for gun safes and much, much more, and to have it personalized, come visit us at United Patriot Supply outside of Seneca, Kansas. You can also visit us online at unitedpatriotsupply.com. Be sure to say that Dr. Dan and DocTalk sent you, and we'll see you down the road.
One animal has this huge impact on your operation.
BVDV is one of the most costly bovine diseases, with losses of $15 to $88 per head.
The virus will actually cross the placenta and get into the fetus. As it's developing, its immune system will recognize that virus as it's supposed to be here. And so then that's where our persistently infected animals come from. They're going to shed that virus their entire life, and then it's going to impact your operation.
It is important to work with your local veterinarian and partner with IDEXX for the best solution for your operation.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Robin Reid. And Robin is a extension farm economist here at Kansas State University. She's out of the Department of Ag Economics. And we're here in Manhattan today shooting this show, talking about land values, land ownership. And then we get to the other one that's big for us in the beef industry is finding acres and land leases. And you do quite a bit of work on land lease negotiation and different types of valuations as well, right?
Yeah, they really go hand in hand with land values. You know, what's going on with the farm economy, everything is interconnected, as you know. You know, when we look at the state of Kansas, and again, it's just an example of what's going on across the Midwest, we have 55% or more of our agricultural acres operated on a leased basis.
Yeah.
So if nobody can dispute how important a lease agreement is to our farm economy and to the future of our farms and ranches here in Kansas. But really, as I talked about in a different segment, we have a generation of landowners that are changing hands, and we're having landowners that are geographically removed from the farm or ranch and generationally. They didn't likely grow up on the farm or ranch by the time it goes to the next generation. So it's an interesting dynamic, and I really see there's going to be harder communication in the future as we work with landowners. The handshake agreement is still by far the normal agreement here in Kansas. So an oral lease, I see a lot more of that becoming written leases,
Right.
and, you know, not having quite that trust that we've had in the future when we knew each other, when we were leasing land. So it's going to be a shifting demographic for sure for landowners.
So then I'm going to make the assumption that the land values and the farm economy drive the negotiation on the lease.
Yes. And so a couple things with that is we've seen land values extremely high, increasing. Obviously, that also pulls up rental rates. You know, we expect to get a certain return on our investment when we buy a piece of ground. So whether we're going to farm it or ranch it ourselves or lease it out, you know, that's going to be pulling up the rates. Also, just it's easy to negotiate up when times are good, but it's sticky to bring that back down. And we're seeing that now with our, you know, commodities other than cattle are still holding very strong, but our other commodities, we're going to be getting into situations where leasing farm ground is not profitable in the rates that we've negotiated in recent years, but bringing that back down is extremely hard, because what's the biggest fear of you trying to negotiate down? You're going to lose that piece of ground and never get it back. So typically we'll see years of losing money on a lease, even just to make sure you hold on to that lease. Because if you've tried to find more ground for your cattle, it's pretty tight out there.
Oh, it's extremely difficult. And we see people going into some confinement type, trying to find different avenues of raising cattle because they can't find the lease or it's so expensive. But as far as lease rates go and ownership and how it's all related, what's kind of your crystal ball, your you know, because we're talking about land ownership changing. and if it's bought by entities that either will we see more leasing or more corporate farming, or don't know?
I think we'll continue to see more leasing. I think a lot of the next generation is willing to hold on to that ground. They still maybe have a little bit of an emotional attachment of growing up there, mom and dad having it. But I think they're going to maybe use a professional farm manager if they're not comfortable themselves negotiating that lease, or it's just going to be a lot more difficult to have that open communication. So that would be my suggestion, is just work hard at establishing a relationship with your landowner.
That's perfect. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the show. Remember, if you want to find us, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. Always work with your local veterinarian and farm economist. With Robin Reid, I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and we'll see you down the road.
At Merck Animal Health, we support you and your legacy by helping you meet the challenges of today with the innovations of tomorrow.